South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and NATO Chief Mark Rutte discussed the gravity of North Korea sending its troops to Russia to help its fight in Ukraine, sharing related information. The foreign ministry today called in the Russian ambassador to Seoul in protest. With the U.S. presidential election only about 2 weeks away, Democrat Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump remain locked in a tight race, and their campaigning gets more heated than ever. Israel continued airstrikes in Gaza over the weekend following the killing of Hamas's leader Yahya Sinwar, killing almost 90 people. It's October 21st, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We start with repercussions of North Korea's deployment of troops to Russia. Speaking with NATO's leader today, President Yoon said his government won't sit idly by as the two sides pledged stronger cooperation, especially in intelligence sharing. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
South Korea is set to send representatives to NATO to share intelligence on North Korea's deployment of its units to support Russia's invasion of Ukraine. According to a statement from the presidential office on Monday, President Yoon Suk-yeol and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte spoke on the phone in response to the deployment, and Rutte requested that South Korea send representatives to NATO. This comes after South Korea's National Intelligence Service confirmed the enhanced military cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang, although as yet it is the only official institution to do so. Russia and North Korea are denying the move while the U.S. Pentagon has yet to confirm it. The statement said that Yoon repeated his message from last week that South Korea won't sit idly by as the deployment threatens peace on the Korean peninsula as well as the world. He also said the situation reaffirms that security in the Indo-Pacific and the Atlantic regions are inseparably linked, while calling for enhanced cooperation between Seoul and the alliance. Secretary General Rutte, according to the statement, responded by saying that NATO is ready to actively cooperate with South Korea on this issue. He also placed this on his X account after the phone call, saying that, quote, North Korea sending troops to fight alongside Russia and Ukraine would mark a significant escalation. According to the statement, the two leaders also agreed to expedite the process to include South Korea in the NATO's Battlefield Information Collection and Exploitation System, the so-called BICES. This would allow the two sides to share intelligence more safely and efficiently. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In the meantime, defense authorities were quick to voice criticisms with more evidence suggesting North Korean troops being sent to Russia. The government also called in the Russian ambassador to Seoul to protest. Our correspondent Bae Yoon-ji with the details.
A long line of soldiers are waiting to receive their uniforms and equipment while speaking in Korean. The Ukrainian Center for Strategic Communication and Information Security released the video on its social media channels on Saturday, saying the footage shows North Korean troops gearing up at a training ground in Russia's Far East. The center also released a questionnaire that appears to have been prepared by Russia for North Korean soldiers to provide measurements for military uniforms, including hats and shoes. This comes after South Korea's intelligence agency on Friday confirmed that North Korea had deployed around 1,500 Special Forces troops to Russia. Over the weekend, the National Intelligence Service even revealed 3 pictures, including a black and white satellite image depicting a Russian vessel departing from the North Korean port of Cheongjin, which is believed to be carrying North Korean soldiers. As more and more evidence supports North Korea's military deployment to Russia, South Korea's defense ministry on Monday strongly criticized the North. It called on the regime to immediately cease its actions, saying that the military will take necessary measures to protect the safety of Korean citizens.
North Korea's participation in Russia's war of aggression is a violation of United Nations resolutions and an illegal act that deserves condemnation from the international community. It's an act that seriously threatens our national security and the safety of our people.
When asked if South Korea plans to supply lethal weapons to Ukraine, The ministry spokesperson refrained from providing a direct answer, but said the government is open to all possibilities and that they'll review necessary measures while closely monitoring the situation. Also on Monday, South Korea's foreign ministry called in the Russian ambassador to Seoul to protest against Moscow's military cooperation with Pyongyang. Seoul's first vice foreign minister Kim Hong-kyun warned Russia's top envoy that South Korea will sternly respond by using all available means through cooperation with the international community. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that greater North Korean involvement would be detrimental to everyone should its troops become trained for modern warfare. In a video address on Sunday, he called for the international community to take a tougher stance against the North, amid continued speculation that it will become more involved in Russia's war against Ukraine. 배은지, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, North Korea's allegations of South Korean drone incursions have been brushed aside by authorities here amid indications that the incident itself may have been staged by the regime. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung has more.
Regarding North Korea's accusations of Seoul using drones to drop anti-regime propaganda on Pyongyang, the South Korean government and military have reportedly concluded internally that no drones crossed into the north. According to sources, the administration and military tracked and analyzed flight paths on the days that the regime claimed the South intruded in its airspace, namely the 3rd, 9th, and 10th of this month. No military or commercial drones were confirmed to have crossed the border, hinting at the high possibility that North Korea staged the incidents. One government source said there was no reason for Seoul to provoke Pyongyang with drones, especially considering the risks of violating the armistice agreement. This comes after North Korea claimed on Saturday that it had discovered the remains of at least one drone sent from South Korea, saying it was the same type displayed on Armed Forces Day, a small long-range reconnaissance drone in Seoul earlier this month. An expert noted that North Korea's claims were baseless and unreasonable just by considering whether it was technically possible for that type of drone to operate as the regime claims.
Technically, the drone's flight range is enough to travel to and from Pyongyang, but the purpose of the drone itself is to film, equipped with detection sensors. There isn't enough internal space to store leaflets, and even if that's possible, the flight range would be significantly reduced.
While sharing the same view that this type of drone cannot fly to and from Pyongyang with leaflets as its payload is only hundreds of grams, lawmaker Yoo Young-won from the ruling PPP said the unmanned aerial vehicle unveiled by North Korea was likely a replica manufactured by the regime itself. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, meanwhile, maintained its ambiguous stance, saying there was nothing to confirm.
There is nothing to verify regarding the claim that any unmanned aerial vehicle from our territory crossed into North Korea. North Korea's unilateral claims are not worth verifying, nor are they worth responding to.
Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, Israel's military campaign against the Palestinian militant group Hamas appears little affected by its recent assassination of the group's mastermind as it continues to ramp up its raids, resulting in more casualties. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
The Israeli military is continuing its offensives in Gaza, despite the death of Hamas's leader Yahya Sinwar. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, at least 87 people were killed by an Israeli airstrike in northern Gaza on Sunday. The ministry said 40 civilians were among the dead. However, the Israeli military says while it's confirming the exact number of casualties, its initial investigation shows that Hamas has exaggerated the figures. It added that the military is trying to avoid causing harm to civilians. Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant announced on Sunday that Israeli attacks targeting pro-Iranian militant group Hezbollah in southern Lebanon are intensifying. He added that the IDF has been successful so far in not only defeating its enemy, but also destroying areas that Hezbollah had tried to use to launch airstrikes against Israel. Over the weekend, a drone was launched toward the residence of Israel's leader Benjamin Netanyahu in what he described as an assassination attempt. According to Netanyahu, the assassination attempt on him and his wife by Hezbollah was a grave mistake, and he vowed to continue fighting. The Israeli Prime Minister also spoke with former President Donald Trump on Saturday, where he emphasized that while Israel takes into account the issues Washington raises, it will be his country that will ultimately make the decisions based on its national interests. Thousands of protesters also took to the streets of Tel Aviv on Saturday, calling on the Israeli leader to sign a ceasefire deal that would lead to the release of the Israeli hostages. Relatives of hostages also took part in the protest, saying negotiations were long overdue. It's believed that 101 Israeli hostages are still being held captive by Hamas since the October 7, 2023 attack that sparked the current war in the region. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
We're now counting down about a fortnight to the U.S. presidential election, which takes place on November 5th. Our Lee Yun-jin covers the campaign trails of the candidates as well as their latest poll standings.
With the 2024 U.S. presidential election fast approaching, both candidates, Democrat Kamala Harris and her Republican rival Donald Trump, remain locked in a tight race. According to a new Reuters Ipsos poll, Harris holds a marginal 3 percentage point lead over Trump, 45% to 42% among registered voters. Scrambling for votes, the two candidates have been focusing their campaigns in the 7 competitive swing states. Over the weekend, Harris campaigned to early voters in Georgia, with polls showing a lack of enthusiasm for her candidacy among black men who have been a reliable voting bloc for Democrats. Harris highlighted that they were not different from any other demographic, and their votes would have to be earned. In order for Harris to repeat Joe Biden's 2020 wins in Michigan and Georgia, she will need to win the non-white cities of Detroit and Atlanta, as well as their surrounding suburbs. Analysis of the Reuters Ipsos poll shows that Harris has overtaken any advantage that Trump had held among middle-income households and suburbanites, who make up about half of the U.S. electorate. Harris also celebrated her 60th birthday on Sunday, which she kicked off with a visit to a church in Georgia. Meanwhile, Donald Trump campaigned in Pennsylvania this weekend, and on Sunday handed out French fries that he fried himself at a drive-through window of McDonald's. A photo op, but also a jab at Harris, who he claims lied about having worked at the fast food chain during her college years. During a rally in Pennsylvania, Trump made derogatory comments against his opponent, prompting a response from Harris in an interview with MSNBC on Sunday, where she said Americans deserve so much better and that Trump's behavior demeans the office. It is not uncommon for public figures to endorse presidential candidates. But Elon Musk, who has already endorsed Trump and committed at least $70 million to help the former president, has now pledged to give away $1 million each day until the November 5th election to a voter who signs his PAC petition. Legal experts are raising red flags about the giveaway because being a registered voter is one of the conditions to be eligible for the $1 million check. The main issue is due to a U.S. law that prohibits paying people to cast a vote or register to vote. For Harris, the Obamas will be making their first appearances on the campaign trail. She is scheduled to appear with the former president in Georgia on Thursday and with Michelle Obama in Michigan on Saturday. Lee Yun-jin, Arirang News.
Now, more businesses in Korea are paying close attention to the two American candidates' plans on tariffs. Our Lee Soo-jin tells us why.
With the U.S. presidential election just 2 weeks away, South Korean companies are showing a growing interest in the candidates' economic policies. The Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry announced on Monday that a survey it conducted of 300 manufacturing companies nationwide during the first 2 weeks of October showed that for both candidates, Korean companies were most interested in tariff policies. While current Vice President and the Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris is focusing her economic agenda on building an opportunity economy, former President and Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has declared that he will create a manufacturing renaissance. And among Harris's policy plans, Korean companies were surveyed to be paying the most attention to her targeted and strategic tariff policy, which garnered 17.4% of the votes. This was closely followed by her policies involving expanding multilateral trade centered on allies, raising corporate taxes, de-risking policies regarding China, and decarbonization. As for Trump's pledges, which focus on bringing manufacturing jobs back to the U.S., Korean companies show the most interest in his universal and reciprocal tariffs, followed by his policies that include trade strategies aimed at eliminating the U.S. trade deficit, reducing benefits for foreign companies that are investing in the U.S., decoupling China, and lowering corporate taxes.
Harris targeted tariff aims to raise tariffs only on the sectors in Korea that have a large impact on the U.S. economy, while Trump's tariffs seek to hike tariffs by 20% on a broad range of sectors.
He added that this is why for Korean companies it is more beneficial for Harris to become president. And this comes amid growing concerns about rising protectionism worldwide. The Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency reported 13 additional import regulation measures targeting Korean products in the first half of the year. The KCI said that because of the U.S. election's significant impact on global exports and supply chains, the government and companies need to work together on a strategy that will maximize national interests. 이수진, Arirang News.
Exports for the first 20 days of this month, that is October, fell on year amid fewer working days. According to the Korea Customs Service on Monday, the total value of exports amounted to $32.7 billion, down almost 3% on year. Despite this, some outbound shipments of semiconductors during the same period surged some 36% on year. The number of international flight passengers using South Korea's Incheon International Airport reached a record high in the third quarter of this year. The airport released data on Monday which stated that more than 18 million passengers used Incheon, which is nearly 18% more than the same period last year. By region, most of the passengers were traveling on routes to Southeast Asia, Japan, China, and North America. It added that this increase is mostly attributed to an increase in travelers during holidays as well as a recovery in the number of passengers for flights to China. It is time to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us is our sports editor, Paul Need. Hello, Paul.
Evening. Hello.
Let's start with baseball in the KBO. The best of 7 Korean series starts tonight.
Yes, that's right. Game 1 was supposed to start at 6:30. The Samsung Lions versus the Kia Tigers at Gwangju Kia Champions Field, but rain delayed the start for well over an hour and finally began just after 7:30. It is currently at the bottom of the third inning, level at 0-0. Now, the Kia Tigers are the champions of the regular season, and the Samsung Lions beat the LG Twins in the playoffs, winning 4 games. The Tigers and the Lions are first and second for the most championship wins. The Lions have won 8, the Kia Tigers 11. If the Kia Tigers win this year, it'll be their first in 7 years. KBO has been the hottest ticket in town of late. The regular season made history by surpassing 10 million spectators for the first time. And according to KBO on Sunday, postseason gate receipts amounted to over $75 million. Tonight's game sold out in just under 15 minutes.
Wow. And moving on to V-League volleyball, what are the main takeaways from the opening weekend?
Well, it's the V-League's 20th anniversary season, and it's a season that volleyball legend Kim Yeon-kyung is determined to end with a championship. The 36-year-old has delayed retirement with the aim of lifting the title with her team, the Incheon Int'l Life Pink Spiders. They began the new season with a 3-1 win over Hill State and are seeking a first title since 2019. In the men's game, 5 of the 7 teams are led by foreign coaches. Under Frenchman Philippe Blanc, the Chonan Hyundai Capital Skywalkers, who won the pre-season KBO Cup, are aiming to prevent the Incheon Korean Air Jumbos from winning a 5th title in a row. The Skywalkers beat Seoul Udikod Udiwon 3-2, while the Jumbos beat Ansan OK Financial Group Okman 3-1.
And moving on to football, Son Heung-min is back.
He is back and he marked his return with a goal. Son on Saturday scored in Tottenham Hotspur's 4-1 Premier League win over West Ham United. Son added the fourth for what was his 250th goal involvement for Spurs. In 416 games overall for the club, Son has now scored 165 and assisted another 85. Now, Son had missed the last 3 games, as well as Korea's 2 recent World Cup qualifiers, due to a hamstring problem. Elsewhere in Europe, Lee Kang-in was on the score sheet for Paris Saint-Germain in the French Giants' 4-2 league win over Strasbourg on Sunday. It was his 4th goal in 8 league matches so far this season.
Right, and finally to golf. An LPGA tournament took place here in South Korea over the weekend.
It did, yes. The BMW Ladies Championship at Sowon Hills in Paju. It was won by Australian Hannah Green, who finished 19 under par, 269. It was a wire-to-wire win too, having led from the get-go. She takes home $330,000 and becomes the 3rd player with at least 3 LPGA victories this year, as well as the first Australian to win 3 since Carrie Webb in 2006. Song Yoo-jin and Choi Hye-jin both finished tied for 4th as the highest-ranked Korean players, finishing at 16 under par.
All right, thank you, Paul. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
It was the coldest this fall in Seoul this morning, with temperatures dropping to 9.7 degrees. During the day, the autumn weather continued in cloudy weather. With chilly conditions, the rain will spread across the country overnight. From today to Wednesday, there will be up to 120 millimeters of heavy rain on Jeju Island, more than 100 on the southern coast, and 80 on the southern inland areas. Also, up to 60 millimeters of rain is expected in the center parts of the country. This rain will gradually stop from Wednesday dawn. Tomorrow, Seoul and Daegu will start off at 16 degrees. Highs will move up to 22 in Daegu and Gyeongju, Gwangju and Busan, 23 degrees. On Thursday, as the cold air moves south behind the rain clouds, the morning temperature in Seoul will drop to around 5 degrees Celsius. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thanks for watching. A panel session up next.